Hey guys, Mr. Kyle, Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump right into it. So today I want to talk about squaring a number without a calculator. So obviously if you have access to a calculator on whatever assignment you're doing, or if you have a test coming up and you can use a calculator on it, then this video is not for you. But if you're coming up on a test like the SAT or an EOC for algebra or geometry, or if you're just in a class where you normally don't use a calculator, then this method could be really helpful for you. So let's just jump into an example and then we'll talk about the steps afterwards. So let's start off with, let's say 21. All right, if I want to take 21 and square it, okay, and actually I'll compare it with squaring or multiplying it by itself, and we'll see which one is easier here, because the mental math you'll find is easier, but the steps take just about as long. So it's really about the mental math and not so much the actual process here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round. I'm going to round to the tens place. Okay, so I would round down to 20. Then you do the opposite of whatever math you would do to get down to that number or up to that number. So I had to, if I did math there instead of rounding, I would subtract 1. So the opposite of subtracting 1 is adding 1. So I add 1. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start writing down these steps off to the side here. So step 1. Step 1 was to round. And I'm just going to put tens here in parentheses. You can also do this with 3-digit numbers, but it's usually not as helpful unless it rounds down to 100 or 200 or up to 200 or 300 or 400, or a nice rounded off number with just zeros on the end. So it really only works well with tens, unless you really want to do some serious mental math, and then go for it. So you can try it on other numbers, but I'm just going to put tens there. So round to the tens place. Then you do the opposite, meaning like you add if you rounded down, and you subtract if you rounded up, right? So rounding is not like, the same thing exactly as adding or subtracting, but you can think about it in terms of like adding or subtracting. So if I round, I go down to 20. Well, I'd have to subtract 1, so I added 1, and I have 22. So now we're on step 3. So let me go ahead and, since I'm over here in this text box, let me go ahead and put what step 3 is. Step 3 is to multiply those two numbers. Excuse me. So I'm going to multiply those two numbers. And by those, I mean, the new ones. So let's go ahead and do that. So 22 times 20. Well, you can do that in your head. There's no carrying. Sometimes there's going to be carrying on these, so disclaimer there. But on this one, there's no carrying. It's going to end in 0 because I'm multiplying by 0. And then 2 times 2 is 4, and then 2 times 2 again. So 4 and 4. So it's just going to end in 0, and then 2 times 22. So I'm just doubling 22, and I get 44. So 440. Okay. Then the next thing you do is, okay, what was the difference? The difference was 1 between those numbers. I'm going to square or multiply it by itself, and then I'll get to my last step here. So once we've multiplied those two numbers, you find the difference from step 2. Okay, so step 2 we had to do the opposite. So we either had to add or subtract. In this case, we added 1 to 21 to get 22, so that we have a number on either side of 21 that's equally as far away. So we find the difference from step 2, which is 1, multiply by itself. So we just multiply by itself. All right, and that leads directly into the last step, which is add the number from step 4 and step 3. So basically you just take the numbers that you have from steps 4 and 3, or 3 and 4, doesn't matter, and you add them. So 440 plus 1, right, because 1 times 1 is 1, and I'd have 441. And there you go. You've used the squaring trick, right? So let's look real quick at what it would look like if you just kind of multiply it by the standard way, right? So 21 times 21, right? You'd have to go, okay, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, carry a 0, right? And then 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and then you'd have to add them, and then you have 1, and that'd be a 4, and that'd be a 4. Hey, look, we get the same thing. So you could do it that way, but a lot of times the squaring trick is easier, especially for numbers ending in 5. So check this out. Let's look at both methods. So let me go to where I have mostly fresh area here to work with. So let's say I wanted to do 45 squared, right? So actually, let's move that over. Let's move this in the middle. Put it in the middle, and then I'm going to kind of draw an arrow going out of it. And let's change that to red there. Yeah, let's do that. So let's do red this time. So if I do the new method, it's going to look like this. And I'm going to go and round. If I do the old method, it's going to go like this. So go ahead and see how much time it takes for me to do both methods. And then we'll look at which one's better here. All right, so and ready, set, go. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Okay, drop a 0. 4 times 5 is 20, ends in 0, and actually that would just be a 2. So then 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 is 18, and then I get that, and then I need to add those, so hold on, need more space here. So 5, 2, and then 8 plus 2 is 10, carry a 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, now I have 225. Okay, so how long did that take? Right, just, I don't know, like 30 seconds maybe. So let's look at what it would take to do the 45, right? So ready and go. Round up, 50. So you do the opposite, 40. 5 times 4 is 20. Add 2 zeros, and then the square of the difference. So the difference is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Add 25, and you have 2025. Done. Right? Now, I'm sure that took much less time than doing it that way. Doing it the way where you know, just the standard way. Okay, so for things ending in 5, it takes way less time because the mental math is just so easy. It's just ridiculous. Let's look at one more example. And this one's going to be a little harder. So you'll see when using this trick is maybe not as easy, but it's still, in my opinion, a little easier than, let's say, you know, doing it the standard way. So let's look at a bigger number. Let's say like 66. Okay, so this time it's going to be a little harder. So let's put 66 over here. Okay, so 66 times 66, we'll do that way first. 6 times 6 is 36. This is going to be a lot of 36s. 6 times 6, again, 36, plus 3 though, so 39. Carry a 0. And then it's going to be the same thing all over again. So 6 times 6, 36. That 3 just stays there. We just stay there. And then 6 times 6 is 36 plus 3 again, so 39. And then I add, so that's 6. 9 plus 6 is 15. 5, carry a 1. 9 plus 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Carry a 1 again. 3 plus 1 is 4. All right, wow. 4356, 4,356. Okay, so let's do the new method. So step 1, round. So it's going to round up to 70. I'd have to add 4, so subtract 4, so 62. So now it's 62 times 70. Now, really, it's only the 0, and it's 62 times 7. So we are actually going to have to multiply a little bit by hand here, and that's what makes it a little harder when you have to carry. So 7 times 2 is 14, unless, of course, you can do this mentally. And then 7 times 6 is 42, plus 1 is 43. 43. So that's 4, 3, 4, 0. And then the square of the difference. So the difference there was 4. 4 squared is 16. So it's 4, 3, 5, 6. Right? And actually, let me go back a little bit. So I kind of skipped that middle step. So it would be 4 times 4 is 16. And then I'd add. So 4, 3, 5, 6. And there we go. So it actually took about the same amount of time because again, when you carry, when you have to carry numbers over, in this example, you just it just takes longer. You have to carry them over. And again, you can do a lot of this mentally. So I'm kind of um, not doing. I'm trying to get away from doing a lot of mental math and do each one just by hand, step by step, not skipping any steps. So if you normally skip steps, if you can do a lot more mental math, then kudos to you. Do it. Unless you're, getting the wrong answer a lot of times, and then maybe you want to step it down a little bit. But here, this method, it still took about the same amount of time. I don't know if you're looking at the time. You can go back in the video and you can see what that clip of time would be for each method, for this method and for this method. But it actually took about the same, I think, for each one, because over here we had to do this guy over here, 62 times 7. Unless of course you can multiply that in your head and then, go for it. But there's the method, and a lot of times it works better, especially for numbers where you don't have to carry, so like 21, so smaller numbers. And then numbers that end in 5, so 15, 25, 35, 45, 6, 55, 65. And then also numbers that are bigger, but you just have to be careful because you do still kind of have to multiply a little bit by hand sometimes when you're multiplying bigger numbers by themselves, so squaring bigger numbers. All right, so that is the squaring trick, how to square any number easily without a calculator. And this has been Mr. Kyle at Myers Mathematics. If this has been helpful, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Throw a comment in the comments below if you want to see a video on a particular topic, and I'll run a video on that. And then also, I have a free guide to not missing any math problems. It's on my website, Myers Mathematics. It's called The 5 Math Mistakes Everyone Makes and How to Avoid Them. It's a free PDF download. You can go there and grab it whenever you want. And it's just free. You just go there and just tell me where to send it to, and I'll send it to your inbox. All right, until next time.